This is John Dowler of Prayer Builders in Winona, Minnesota. Today we are going to be looking in 1 Thessalonians. We're going to be in chapter 2, and I just want to focus on verse 2 today. Paul is writing the church, and Paul was actually reminding them. And you know what? Sometimes it's just like there's a lot of times that you'll be reading these epistles and we'll be getting reminded of things. The church will be Paul will be bringing things back to mind. I mean, do you know, like, sometimes we are so short-sighted, we don't remember stuff. A lot of times when people get discouraged, they don't remember what God did. I mean, I've been in times in my life where all of a sudden there was a big need. And I just needed to be reminded. And I mean, my wife and I might have been facing something. And all of a sudden, I mean, when you get faced with a new struggle, a new trial, a new conflict, it's easy just to start thinking, man, what am I going to do now? What am I going to do now? And usually whenever that happens, I just kind of like try to step back from the situation, just let the dust fall to the ground, and think about everything. Just think about different instances God already brought me through. And then usually when that happens, something resolute starts building up inside of me, and I'll go tell my wife. I'll put my hand on her shoulder, and I will say, you know what? I know what's going to happen. God's going to take care of us. He is taking care of us every time. And then I will start to name off these string of things. Look, when this happened, God did this. When this happened, God did this. When this happened, God showed up. When this happened, we need to remind each other. Well, right here, he was reminding them they were constantly, I mean, in any of these church situations, they all had conflicts going on. Paul said, even after we had suffered before, and I mean, we're spitefully treated at Philippi, as you know, we were bold in our God to speak to you the gospel of God in much affliction and much conflict. Well, what had just happened when before he went to Thessalonica and founded the church? Him and Silas were just thrown in prison in Acts chapter 16 in Philippi. And they had been beaten. They went through a whole bunch of persecution for casting a devil out of somebody. And then they went through much conflict for performing an exorcism. And then they were in the middle of that, and how Paul was just encouraging them. Paul was saying, don't let conflict slow you down. You need to remember when we came to you, remember what we just came out of. And then when we came over into Thessalonica, did we let that slow us down? Did we say, hey, we don't want to cast out devils here and get beaten again? No. Paul was just as bold and fearless to do what God was calling him to do, and moving forward and just obeying the Spirit and obeying his promptings and preaching the gospel like he always had. And I just want to encourage you, don't let conflict, don't let any conflict, don't let anything that's in your life shake you. Remember what God did. And this church was still functioning because it got built on that kind of foundation. It got built on that kind of foundation, and he was reminding them of this. Don't be afraid of conflict. You guys were born in conflict. I had conflict before and after you guys got started as a church. So anyway, I just want to encourage you with this, and I just want to remind you, always comfort one another with these words, that Jesus is coming back.